Well, here we are at step number 4. Figuring how many sides we're going to put in the project. Mostly, it's a matter of personal preference. I like 12 sides. I started out my segmented life doing 20, decided that was too many, and I backed down and I ended up with 12. Kurt Theobald does 16 most of the time. I'm sure he does other sizes too, though. But to give you an idea of some of the considerations for determining how many sides you really should use, I've got this set of segments here out of a recent project. Down here at this end we have a very wide or big wall thickness segment. This is a bottom piece. That's the next to the bottom. That's probably the next one up after that. Working our way up the project, up towards the maximum diameter of the project, you end up with a long and skinny piece. All of these were based on having turned wall thicknesses of about 1/4 inch. Now all of these at 12 sides make very good circles if you clamp them up good and tight. But the more sides that you put in, the less likely it is that that's going to be enough to hold it into a true circle, and you may have to help it. Another consideration is the process that you're going to use to make the segments in the first place. I don't sand my segments, so whether I use 12 sides or 16 or 24 or 36, whatever, it really doesn't matter. It's just a matter of how much time it takes to do it. The more sides, the more time it's going to take. But the more sides that you use, the better the approximation to a circle it is, while at the same time the less likely it is to be a true circle because you don't have much of a bearing surface to force it to be into a true circle. The amount of wood you waste is a function of how many sides you put on the project. If you're only going to do a 6-sided project and you're going for 1/4 inch walls, you're going to end up with something on the order of 60% wasted wood. Out here you've got to have 5/8 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch wide in order to end up with a turnable size of 1/4 inch. So you're throwing away a lot of the wood. As you go up in the number of sides, the waste situation gets better. Take that same 6-inch ring and go up to a 12-sided ring, then it's about 29% wastage. Going on up to 24 sides, it drops down to just under 10%. Doesn't really make a lot of difference though, because you're not using that much wood to start with. You're using so much wood less than you would be if you were working on a solid chunk of wood. One other consideration, I got a couple more yet, but the next one is how you're processing and like if you're sanding. If you're working on a piece like this, sanding is real easy. If you work on a piece like this, it's much more difficult. And I'll show you what I mean. Now here's a sort of setup on a vertical disc sander. And this is the orientation you're going to be in when you're trying to sand a face. You've got a nice long face here, then you've got a good place to rest, and you can be assured of getting a pretty darn good angle, accurate angle. But take one of these long skinny pieces now, and now you're expected to hold this flat across this point here so that you can get the right angle there. Much harder to do. And the last consideration I want you to think about is, what do you want your project to look like? That's a big point in it. Now here's a picture of a spherical bowl. It's about 9 inches. This is at 12 sides per ring, and our waste figure is around 29%, as I said before. Now that wraps around pretty fast using a half lap assembly of the rings, one ring to another. That might look like it wrapped a little bit too fast and too tight for you. So this next picture is of a 16-sided object. It's the same object, but now we have 16 sides per ring. And notice we've unwound it a little bit. And finally, take a look at 24 sides, and we've considerably unwound it, and it has a radically different appearance than it did back at 12 sides. That one at 16, at 12, and this one at 16. So I think it all ends up being personal preference, or the needs of a particular piece and what kind of design you want to use in it. For this spiraling design, actually I think 16 or 24 might be a better looking object than the one at 12. But the 12 works too. So, go have fun.